come into your presence, to once again be surrounded and filled by you. We ask that you'll open our eyes, open our ears, and open our hearts so we can see, hear, and understand what your word has to tell us. We thank you for it. In the name of Yeshua, amen. All right. So we've made it to Parsha Hukat. Parsha Hukat.
What does that mean? Sorry.
Hukat means statute. Statute. But Parsha Hukat. Well, let's just jump into the first verse. And it simply says, this is Bamidbar 19, and we're just going to take a look at verses 1 and 2. It begins talking about the red heifer, and then we're going to kind of summarize what the benefits of the red heifer were. But we're going to take a little bit more in-depth look at these first two verses, because it opens our eyes to understand what the balance of the verses in chapter 19 tell us. So, verse 1 of chapter 19 of Bamidbar says, "And Yahuwah spoke unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying," and normally we kind of just breeze by that verse and kind of just blow it off. Okay, this is an introduction. So we're going to take a look at this verse, and we're going to see how important that this particular verse is to our understanding of what is about to happen and what this red heifer is going to tell us. So let's consider with the first part of this verse, in the first phrase, it says, Vaidaber Yahuwah. It says, and Yahuwah spoke. And we've said that although daber does mean to speak, it also means a promise and a commandment. The name of our Elohim is Yahuwah. His name means eternity. It comes from a root, Yehi, that means to exist. And it has roots that imply everything there is, everything there was, everything there will be, today, yesterday, and tomorrow. So instead of reading simply, and Yahuwah spoke, that we can see that Yahuwah spoke forth a promise, and as we will see, a command that affects everything in our life, past, present, and future. This is just from the first part of this verse, and Yahuwah spoke. In the phrase El Moshe Va'el Aaron, which is unto Moses and Aaron, we find a little change from the usual, and Yahuwah spoke unto Moses and said, speak unto Aaron and say. In this case, it says, speak, or spoke unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying. And this wording allows us to take a little bit of a look at something that's going to be very important in our understanding of the red heifer. That if we will look at the name Moshe, it means drawn. Now we remember that Moses, was drawn out of the water by the servant of Pharaoh. This is kind of alluding to a birth, that he was born into a royal court. Aaron means light giver, or giver of light. But our word of interest in this is in the word Vael. Vael. It means and unto. And we would dismiss Vael as we dismiss Vaet, which means and. But Vael is telling us a lot more, because in the Vav, we have flesh, we have human. In the Lamed, we have instruction. And then in the Aleph, we have Yahuwah Elohim. So if we take all this, Baal, flesh, human, instruction, Yahuwah Elohim, we start to compose an idea that in the Lamed, we've said has a word that means instruction, teaching, guidance. Aleph, we understand that it represents Yahweh Elohim. It's the first time we see the Aleph as the root of a word in Torah, is in Elohim, the first verse or the first chapter of Bereshit. The same gematria as the name Yahweh. So Aleph represents Yahweh Elohim, and then the Vav, like we said, represents the flesh. We start to get an idea of something that's going on here, that the teaching, the instruction, the guidance of Yahweh Elohim became flesh. It was drawn from the water, an idea of having been born out of the amniotic fluid in the womb, the waters to become the giver of life. So we now have a kind of an idea of what's about to happen and what we receive from the red heifer. So we have one more word to address, and this is lamor, which is saying. The word amor does mean to say, but it also means to say from one's heart. So Yahweh is speaking forth the word from his heart, which we know to be the Torah. And John, in chapter 1, explains this verse to us in detail. He says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. But in the Aramaic, instead of using the word word, he uses the word milta. Milta is a word that means manifestation. It also means word. So in the beginning was the manifestation of the Word. The Word, the manifestation was with Elohim, and the manifestation of the Word, as we read in verse 14, became flesh and tabernacled among us. So if we keep all of that in mind, just from the introduction, that Yahweh sent his word to bring us instruction in the flesh, we take a look at verse 2 that says, this is the statute of the Torah, which Yahweh has commanded, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, that they bring you a red heifer, faultless, wherein is no blemish, and upon which never came a yoke. You say, okay, well, this is going to be a perfect red cow, and nowadays we have perfect red cows, and the rabbis go through it with a microscope to find, oh, it's got a white hair, this is no good. I don't really think that they did that back then. It's red, it's not sick, it's in good health, bring it here, we're going to offer this red heifer up. That's what they're trying to get at. No spot, no blemish. But the word that we don't find in the English here is zot, which actually means likewise. It's the first word. It means likewise. So let's take a look at this word to further understand what verse 1 is actually telling us and what it's going to mean for the balance of verse 2. Zot also means this one and who, but its root is zeh, which means lamb. Okay? What did Yochanan the Immerser say about Yeshua? He said, behold the Lamb of Elohim that takes away the sin of the world. And our next word is hukat. Hukat is the Parshan name, hukat. It means statute, but it also means enactment, as well as something prescribed. The root of this word is huk, which, although meaning statute, more specifically means an appointment to a position or a task to complete. So we can begin to formulate an idea. And our idea comes from verse 1, that we add what we've just discovered in verse 2, and we put that together, that the instruction, teaching, and guidance of Yahweh Elohim, who was the Word, was drawn from the water, became human, brought light to a world of darkness, and as the Lamb was appointed to complete a task. In this hukat, Yahweh spoke forth a promise, and as we will see, a command that affects everything in our lives, present, past, and future, if we would believe and receive. So we're starting to see the importance of the red heifer. It's not one of those side stories, oh, the red heifer, and we have to have the red heifer before we can have the temple, and you know, people get so much into all this prophecy. Yeah, the word is prophetic, but they go overkill into it, and it becomes nonsense. Our Elohim is interested in our restoration. He's interested in our making teshuvah. He's interested in our returning to Him in a relationship so that He can wrap His hedge of protection around us and us to become His delight again. But we've turned the Torah, we've turned the Bible into a crystal ball, and we're trying to foretell the future events. So, Hukat means a lot more to us than simply a statute. The next word in line is HaTorah. So we understand that this Hukat came from the Torah, the instruction, teaching, and guidance of Yahweh. The Torah is also called in Scripture, and you find it several times in the Hebrew, it's also called Yeshua. Yeshua. They call the Torah Yeshua, then what does that mean? John says that the Word became flesh. In other words, the Torah itself became flesh, and we know His name was Yeshua, meaning the restoration, redemption, and deliverance of Yahweh, and that as the Lamb of Elohim, He would do exactly that by carrying out the Ziva, which is the next word in line, command and the task of the Father in order that we should receive the promise of Yahweh Elohim. Everybody with me so far? It's so much more than some prophetic thing that we have to find a red cow. This is something that is telling us that restoration, redemption, deliverance is right there. All we have to do is say, okay. All right, where was I? The word ziva means command, but also means to give authority, to appoint, ordain, and to enjoin. So we now recognize that the Word was enjoined to the flesh as Yeshua, the Lamb of Elohim, having the authority of Yahweh Elohim to bring us restoration, redemption, and deliverance from the wage of sin, which is death. He brought us an existence in Yahuwah that will last eternally if we will believe and receive Yeshua. The next word that comes here is lamor. Again, this word means to say, but it means from the heart. Who is saying it? Yahuwah, whose heart is the Torah. This word is given to Bnei Israel. We all read and we say from time to time, Israel, the children of Israel, or special people. Israel, the land of Israel has a very, very prominent place with Yahweh Elohim. There's no doubting that. But who is Bnei Israel? Who is the children of Israel? And this is something that we really need to grasp. Now, that the word Bnei, children, finds its root in Banah, that means to establish and to restore. And Yisrael means Elohim prevails. Now we can say that Israel means to wrestle with Elohim. And if we're wrestling with Elohim, then we need to understand that in order to be established, we have to be restored. But since we're looking at something in a positive light, then we understand that to be Bnei Israel is to be established that Elohim prevails in our lives. What does that mean? That I understand that I'm not Elohim. I'm not Elohim. We can go through our day, and how many times a day, if we really think about it, how many times a day are we Elohim? That we say, things about I use a thorn in the side of a lot of people that was passed today. The whole same-sex marriage thing that was passed today, and the comments that you read on social media are just terrible. These people are passing judgment. Is it wrong? Yes. According to the word of Yahweh Elohim, it's wrong. Leviticus, he tells us it's an abomination. What is my responsibility in it? What is my responsibility in it? My responsibility is to minister to these people. I've had people that have asked me, well, I work in a department store and I have to register couples for weddings. What do? I say, you take their names down and you take their names home and you lift their names up to Yahweh Elohim in a positive light. You don't pass judgment. You can't pass judgment. Simply help them, to take their names with you, and pray. It's the same thing. You have to bake a cake. We have had so many bakers that have lost their shirts because they refuse to bake cakes. Bake the cake. Get their names. You're going to get their names anyway. Take those names home. Pray for them. Because the problem, I'm on a soapbox, but forgive me. The problem is, we're not going to make changes in the world. We can't change the world. We're not Elohim. The only way that change is going to be made is by us praying and believing and receiving Yeshua. Well, how does believing and receiving Yeshua change this? What does Yeshua mean? The restoration, redemption, and deliverance of Yahweh Elohim that doesn't just come to an individual, but we believe and receive it for a group of people, a city, a community, a nation, a world. It's a big difference. So, anyway, we are not Elohim. Bana means to be established and restored by Elohim. I'm established that Elohim prevails in my life, and this restores me. I do not make myself Elohim and try to solve the world's problems by being frustrated about it. So, I'm glad I got that off my chest. Okay. Yisrael means that Elohim prevails, so we can consider that in this title, that this word, promise, and command is given to those who are established and restored because Elohim prevails in their lives, those who believe and receive. We see this being offered specifically to Bnei Yisrael in the word Debar, which again means promise and command. This promise, we will see, is offered to the entire world if they will believe and receive Yeshua. And we see this in the next word, which is Vayikechu, that they bring you. This word comes from the word lakach. Lakach means to bring. It means to take. Lakach means to lay a hold of, to seize, to bring away. Last week in Korach, we looked at the negative side of lakach. And the negative side of lakach is that lamed, again, means instruction. The negative side is that kof means to divide. And then het means wall, and is the Hebrew word for sin. So the negative side of lakach is that we can be laid a hold of or taken away from the kingdom if we are divided by a wall of sin that keeps us from seeing the instruction of our Elohim. And we saw this in the name Korach. But we're not looking at the negative. We're looking at the positive. This is a positive thing that's going on. So if we're looking at the positive, lamed still means instruction. In fact, lamed is the Hebrew word for instruction. Kof means to set